Behind me is the Kempinski Gold Coast Hotel, a five-star hotel located in the exclusive cantonment area of Accra, Ghana. 7 months ago, this hotel hosted a clandestine journalism retreat hosted by a little-known NGO called the Center for Information Resilience. This organization was founded by two former staff of the UK Foreign, Commonwealth and Development Office and received its funding from the FCDO and USAID. A group of 10 Nigerian journalists was flown out to Accra and lodged here at the Kempinski for this exclusive retreat, where they received detailed instructions regarding what personalities, organizations, and positions were apparently approved for journalism discourse and which ones were Russian disinformation.
Upon returning to Nigeria, participants were given copies of a now infamous Adaptive Country Plan Research document, which went into great detail in naming and identifying specific individuals, organizations, and issues which were to be labeled as Russian-sponsored or Kremlin-backed. My name was mentioned at least 35 times in this document, which expressly identified me as a pro-Kremlin, pro-China Nigerian journalist. Each of the participating journalists was then given instructions to publish one hit piece every 3 months, which would tag one of the identified Nigerian names and issues with the Russian propaganda tag in mainstream Nigerian and international media. I managed to get a recorded testimony from one of the participants who chose to back out after realizing that he was being asked to take part in a foreign influence operation on the cheap.
And they put these countries, they put the best of the best. And they give them peanuts just to do this asset job. It's like a bait. They know that most journalists earn about 70,000 naira in Africa. So if you're saying that we are giving them 1,000 pounds, which is about over 2 million in 3 months, in addition to whatever they're earning in Nigeria, it is going to be difficult for almost any journalist to reject that offer. And that's why they created an NTA to force people not to talk, to force people not to say anything outside. You are putting us together, you are doing trading this for. What does it cost you to just allow us to say that this thing was funded by so-so-so, or this is a project under so-so-so? That is what we call accountability journalism. If you are doing propaganda, let's know that I am working as a propagandist.
Exploiting the diplomatic privilege enjoyed by US embassies and foreign missions across Africa, the US State Department is now directly dictating its own geopolitical positions to African reporters and journalism training institutions. In May, the US Embassy in Uganda organized a secret training program for a few selected East African journalists in partnership with the African Institute for Investigative Journalism on the subject of, you guessed it, Russian disinformation. According to one of the invited journalists who spoke to West Africa Weekly, the organizers of the program were so secretive that participants were instructed to keep their participation secret and to refrain from recording anything. The purpose of the program was apparently to train East African journalists to identify and counteract Russian propaganda, with specific emphasis placed on the Russian state broadcaster RT. West Africa Weekly was able to get hold of the event program, and what it showed was that all the non-Ugandan speakers at the program were directly linked to the CIA or the US Department of Defense.
They have the credentials. It's a claim to authority. And I challenge anyone who will be watching this after we record it. Go and look up the West Africa Weekly program. There's that Dr. Preva Mukasa, I think, is a UCU journalism professor. Google it and try to see if there's any paper of his that's publicly available that touches on this topic. Hagai Masiko, the Agora head of investigations, did a historical analysis of Russian propaganda in Uganda. If you can find a copy of it that's publicly available that's attributed to him, I'm not going to say I'll give you a prize. I want to see it.
As it turns out, the African Institute for Investigative Journalism, which was at the center of all this, may have significantly more hats than cattle. It certainly does not look like an institution that is currently costing US taxpayers a 6-digit grant amount. For one thing, it is located inside a shopping mall off a scruffy dirt road in Kampala's Bolindo district. Hardly what you would picture Uganda's best and brightest young reporters being forged into the next generation of East African journalistic talent. So I captured a few external visuals and I sent an email to AIIJ asking for comment. At press time, there was no response. A few days before my visit to Uganda, the Ugandan government had accused the German embassy of carrying out subversive activities, and perhaps understandably, no official seemed eager to go on record to speak about an issue that could spark a second concurrent diplomatic dispute.
This is a national security issue. Historically, the trajectory of this organization, for example, NED, has been mapped out. It undermines the intellectual labor force of the country, first and foremost. It makes people focus on non-existent problems. We are legitimizing the foreign policy of other countries before we even look at our problems to begin with.
Someone else in East Africa who knows a lot about the US government's attempted hostile takeover of Africa's information spaces is African Stream CEO Ahmed Kabalo. At its peak in September 2024, while receiving over 20 million eyeballs weekly, the now shuttered Pan-African digital news and current affairs platform was labeled a Russian-backed operation by former US Secretary of State Antony Blinken. Immediately after this accusation, which Blinken never made an attempt to substantiate in any way, African Stream was kicked off nearly all major American social media and back-office platforms it had a presence on.
It will be up to Africans to agree or disagree with this idea of becoming a continent-sized puppet of a single foreign power. For West Africa Weekly, this is David Hundeyin.